Hello. Good day, everyone. Hope everyone's able to hear me all right. Okay, that's great. So we'll get started with the day. We have a few exciting sessions planned up for today's session, and we'll get started right away. So I'll start sharing my screen. Uh, can you please just let me know once you're able to see it? Perfect. That's great. So let's get started with the session, right? And before we start, once again, we thank everyone for taking the time uh, to join our session. Uh, in the past 3 days, we've tried to put as much as content as possible, and we've tried to do our best. And thank you for supporting us all the way. And we'll do one one good day again. And trust us, we have a few interesting features lined up for the day. And what better way to start off with the day than to look at one of the most awaited features in Zoho Creative, JS widgets, right? So this is one feature which was requested by most of the developers, if not all, every right from the time when we announced it during the initial launch in Zoolix developers, right? And great. The best part about the JS feature is it is currently available. We have officially launched it, and anyway, and everyone having a premium plan or more will have access to this particular feature. So let's try to take a step back, understand why widgets, right? So when creators started off with a combination of a simple low-code application development platform with the combination of uh, a very simple yet powerful programming language that we designed on our own called Deluge. And over time, in Creator, we have added a lot of features and we've abstracted a lot of features as well. Because in the recent parts, you even had options where you were able to write integrations without a single line of code, right? So apart from that, including dashboards, beautiful dashboards, effective dashboards, we had enabled the option for you to create dashboard without a single line of code as well, right? But in the current market, to keep up with the pace, Deluge or ZML, the Zoho markup language that we have, just might not be enough. So we decided to introduce a few other programming languages and designing languages into Zoho Creator, and the first of which is JS, right? So with JS, since it's a complete program designing language by itself, we wanted to make sure when we allow it on a platform like Creator, we make sure it's secure and we take care of the privacy as well. So we're compiling it into component called widgets, right? So widgets are nothing but they're going to help you extend the capabilities of your application, which were earlier not available using the built-in features that Creator provided. Uh, I'm sorry, just checking if I've started the recording there so that I can share the recording with you guys after the session's done. Uh, yeah, so what are the capabilities of a widget? So first, you create and customize features that are specific to your app. So for your application, you can build features or customize features that might not be available right now. Second, redefine the way your application interacts with your customers. So this has become one major reason for most of the applications now. Any client coming in, He wants the application's look and feel in his own way. He doesn't want the native look and feel that any application provides. So we're trying to cater to that. I'm sorry. So the third one is to incorporate third-party applications to cater to your app, creator app as well. Recently, a lot of famous third-party vendors, third-party apps have started to make their features available over SDKs. So we will be seeing how we can compile them together so that it will look like an extension of your application itself rather than a third-party application separately. And how are we planning to do this, right? So you build a widget using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, JS. You put it together, right? And you create a Zoho creator application on our platform. And we use something called the JS SDK, which is going to allow the widgets to interact with the application. So the data transfer is going to happen using JS SDK. So how are we going to achieve creating a widget? So let's look at the overview of the process. First step, we download the command line tool. Second, we create a project. Third, we develop a widget using HTML, CSS, Java, combine them together, right? We test it, pack it, and upload it to Creator, right? Simple steps of creating a widget and adding them into Creator. And we'll just look at a couple of prerequisites, right? So Node.js source code, you can download it from the given URL, right? Or if you go on Google, you'll have the same URL coming up as well, right? And once the Node.js is installed, you just verify the installation using node-v or npm-v. Perfect. So in the next few slides, I'll show you like a quick run through of the process. After that, we'll work together on a process. We'll try to create a widget together, right? First, installation of the command line tool. So we have a command here. So npm install -g Zoho extension toolkit, right? So that is going to be the command line tool. Great. And second step is to create a project in it. So once you install the command line tool, you jump on, start developing the application in it. Then we create, so as you can see, it will create a project in our folder, and this and all the dependencies needed will also be added to the folder, right? And as you can see, you'll have multiple folders added by default, and we'll be working on the app folder. So the JS widget that we'll be packing will be added here. So inside the app folder, you'll have a sample widget.html file by default. So just to make sure that the widget is not empty when it's being installed. So we've added like a dummy widget file over there. So perfect. So let's quickly move on and try to create a widget, a very simple widget using HTML and CSS, right? And for that, first, we'll create a Zoho Creator application. So we click on New App, create from scratch, and I'll say Z-Inspire, and create. So inside the Creator app, we'll create a form, maybe a blank form, and we'll say JS sample. So we'll add a couple of fields here. We'll add a single line, an email, and probably a number field, right? So we'll say, we'll rename these fields. I'm going to call it the right. I'm changing the name, department name. And the number field, we'll say employee number. And this one will say employee email. Right. So we've created a simple form here. So we'll access the form. Right. And this is the default layout of Creator. This is how the form looks like. And if you want to add data, you just add information into the boxes, submit it, and the data gets added into the report. Right? So let's go and try to create a HTML page, right, using the JS widget, and we'll try to push data from a form that we create on HTML. So for that, first we'll go into the terminal window, and let me zoom that. Zoom it. Perfect. So first and foremost, the step that we saw, guess I can use this. So first step is to install the command line tool. So for that, I'll use the sudo command and say npm install -g Zoho extension toolkit, right? So you hit enter, and since I'm running it on sudo, you ask me for the password, give it the password, and it'll start installing it, right? So we'll just wait for the installation to complete. Perfect. So once it's done, the second step is to create a project in it. So let's say ZET Zoho extension toolkit, and in it we'll create a project. So it'll ask us to choose the service, and we're going to go down to Zoho Creator, choose Zoho Creator, and we give a project name. So again, let's get set Inspire there. And as you can see, it'll initialize creating the project, and it'll also install all the NPM dependencies needed for that particular widget. So we can go to the Finder folder, and I'll try to zoom it a bit. So as you can see here, a folder is created. And when we go in, all the dependencies that are needed for this widget is added by default. And as I said, we'll be working with the app folder. Going into the app folder, we have a basic HTML text added here for a dummy one. We can try to access this. So this is the actual content inside the current widget, right? So let's try to change it a bit. And so for this particular option, and I'm going to be using the editor Visual Studio Code. So let's drag and drop the app folder. Maximize it. Here's the widget HTML, and here's the code behind the actual widget that we saw, right? So in this step, First thing that we'll have to notice is once we install this widget, there's a dependency here where we need the SDK, right? So we have given the SDK file in our tech articles, and I have it uploaded or downloaded already. I'll probably show you where you can download as well. So when we go to our tech articles, we have updated our tech article row here. And when we go to JS API documentation, you'll have the option to download the SDK file. So we just have to copy the SDK file and add it to the app folder, and it'll be displayed here as well, right? So first thing that we'll have to do is we'll try to connect them together. So we'll say, and let me zoom this a bit, perfect. Script source, and I'll say widget sdk.js, right? So we are referring to that particular JS file. Perfect. So we're done. We're doing good so far. So the next step, we'll try to create a form, and we'll give the form an ID just to identify it. You can call it anything. Click on done. Perfect. So in our application, we've added 3 fields, right? So in our HTML form as well, let's try to add 3 fields. So one is department name, and we'll say we'll give it an input option, type, say text, and we'll try to identify this input, and we'll say, right, and probably just for the look of it, we'll just say a placeholder. Right. So we'll just try to save this. And when we right click here, we'll have the option to open it with the live server. So it will actually show us how the HTML file is coming up. So we click on that, and let me zoom in. So as you can see, we have added a field and we've added an input box here. Perfect. So let's go add another couple more. And I think another one is employee number, and we'll say input type equals number, give it a name to identify it. And the last one is email. Okay, we'll identify it. Save it, come back here, try to zoom out a bit. So we've added 3 fields here. Let's try to add them one with the other so that it's easier to follow. Perfect. So we have an option to add the department name, employee number, and an email. Let's create a button. So once we add the data, we click on the button, the data needs to be pushed to creator, right? So for that, let's add a button here. Give it a name. Say perfect. So we have the button over here. Now, so far we have done the HTML that is needed. Let's move on to the functionality part, how the application needs to behave or how the template needs to behave. So I need an action to be done when I click on this button, right? So now let's move on to writing our JS scripts. You can go script, okay? And over here, we'll create a function. Okay. Right. And we'll give the function a name, maybe first, and delete the params, and we have an action happening here. So let's, just to make sure it's working, we'll do an alert. Right. And when do we want this particular action to be triggered? When we click on this particular button. So we'll go to the button and we'll call the function and they click it. So we'll add an on-click action and we'll call the function first. Let's try to save it. Okay. Problem. Perfect. So now we know when we click on the button, we are able to have an action trigger. So we have an alert statement added here. So now we'll remove the alert statement and hopefully the screen is still being shared. We'll remove the alert statement and let's start adding the creator function that is needed. We add a function inside it. So we'll take the help of our tech articles. Slightly zoom in a bit. So here you can see clearly to initialize the SDK, we have a particular function that we'll have to do. So I'll directly copy it and I'll paste it over here. So we've initiated the function. I don't think we need paramanager. This should be good. Right? So, okay, great. So we have a function, and inside the function, we're initiating the Zoho Creators SDK. So inside the Zoho Creator SDK, what are we planning to do, right? If we come down under record APIs, you'll have the different options available, right? We are going to be adding a record. So when we fill this particular form, we want a record to be added in Zoho Creator. So we choose add a record, and here's the syntax for adding a record, right? So it's very similar to a function call, right? So we'll just save some time, just copy that example, go back, and inside the SDK call, we'll paste it, right? So in this, the first thing that we can look at is the form name. So form name, here we'll have to replace it with the form to which we are trying to push the data. Copy that and replace it here. Perfect. So the first half is done. The second part, we need the form data. What data needs to be pushed over to the creator form? We need to identify that. So for that, we can see how the form data is being built. Here's an example of the form data, right? So form data, inside that you have a key data, and inside that you have another array, a map here. So you have name. So we all know that the name field, the address field are composite fields. So this is how you can declare the composite information. So when it comes to a name field, you'll have first name, last name, the salutation and all that, right? So you can add them as composite information here. And the rest of the fields are directly explained like this. So for our example, we have used a single line field, a number field, and an email field. So we just display it like this. So we'll try to build form data. And inside form data, we need data. And we are having another array inside. And now we can start declaring the fields and information that is needed, right? So we get the field information from here. So first one is the department name. We'll say department name, and the value part, we'll leave it blank for now. We add a comma. The next one is the employee number. Value again, we leave it blank for now. And the last one is the employee email. And the value, we'll have it blank for now. So here, what value needs to be passed? We need the values from the form that we are filling to be pushed into this particular function, right? So let's try to get that particular data. And how do we get that? And we can declare a variable. And from the current document, right, get elements by name. We have name specified to all our elements, so we can use name here. And inside, we'll specify which element do we want now. So I'll say this one is employee name. We'll try to, okay, this one's department. And we'll say department name, and we need the value alone. So now this variable will hold any value that we add in the first input field. So let's just copy that. And we just try to give it new variable names. And here we'll specify the name that we want to be pulled. So employee number and employee email, right? So we're pulling all the information, we're adding it to the variables, and now it's pretty easy now. So against each key, we'll have the value pass. So department name is inside DPNE, employee number is here, employee email is here, right? So we're done now. So we have formed the form data. We've added all the information inside it. We've added the form data into the variable config, and we're using the config in the SDK API, right? So great, we're done. We'll try to save this, and let's go and pack our widget, right? So let me go to the directory. Let's set as fire. And I'm going to say ZET pack, right? So once we say pack, as you can see, it will create a zip file in the distribution folder. A distribution folder will be created by default, right? So if we go back here, we can find the distribution folder, and inside that we have our zip file. So now there's only the one thing left to do. Go back to creator and upload the widget that we have created, right? So inside developer tools, you'll find widgets. Click on widgets, click on create, give it a name, upload the file. So we'll navigate to the distribution folder and upload the zip file, right? And the index file is just the initiating file. In our case, the index file is widget.html. So we'll specify the same here. And we click on create. So now this particular widget is added to the application. Now let's go ahead and add it as a component. So widgets are currently available inside the pages component. So we go ahead, create a page, right? And inside pages, you have widgets, and here's the widget that we had created. Simple, just drag and drop it onto the page. Click on done. You can go back here, do a small refresh, go to JS form, and here's the form that we had created. So let's add our first data. So department one, let me it. Right? And we click on add record. The execution is done, and we have the record added to the report automatically. And one thing we can notice is inside this particular function, if you see after the execution is done, we have done a console log as well, right? So that is something that we can get from the browser. So for any browser, you just right click, inspect element, and you'll have the console logs here. Right? So let's add another entry. Yeah, and we click on add record. So once we add record, if you noticed here at the bottom, it would say record added successfully, the message that we had put to be shown in the console log. So our execution has happened properly. So we just can go to the report and we can find the record that we added. Right. So this is a very basic example that we wanted to show. We chose a very basic example so that we can understand the underlying concepts. And once we understand the concept, we can bring in n number of implementations inside the JS widget. Right. And another nice thing with the JS widget that we've done is to help you get started with JS widget. If you go to the documentation part, we have added something called a sample widget, right? So this sample widget holds all the executions or all the actions that we have for all the record pathway. So you can just click on download the zip file. The zip will be downloaded. You can go back to the app, widgets, and we'll add a new widget. Let's say sample, upload the zip file that you just downloaded. And the index file is index.html. Right? So we can go and specify the same and create. So we can go to design, to our page. Let's replace the widget that we created with the new widget that we added. Go to widgets. We have both, and we drag and drop sample this time. Here, do again a small refresh. And the page. Right? So this is a sample widget that we have added by default. As you saw, it's very simple to have it uploaded. And at the right top, you can see all the actions that we currently allow over the SDK API is given here. So you can easily try out examples. So clicking on add record, you can see it asks me for the form name. I think the form name is JS samples, and it is asking for the data information, the form data. And we have created the form data here, right? So we just copy it, right? And we can paste it. And for the values, we'll add values. Email, we'll add an email. Right? So once we do that, we click on add a record, the execution happens. Uh, Just verify everything. Okay, we have it as sample. Perfect. So I think I made a mistake with the link name. So once we give the proper link name, as you can see, the record will be added automatically and it will give us a response. And in the response, as you can see, we can get the ID of the new record that is generated as well. So as you know, with Creator, for each and every record, we have a unique ID generated. So you can even make use of it in the backend. So going back to the report, you can see the record that we just added, right? So we'll just move back to the presentation and probably I'll show you a few samples of what we can achieve, right? Customized forms, how forms can be customized, how they interact, how the user gives the input, everything can be customized. So even after the form is getting the data, you have like a review and submit page where you can summarize everything and show the UI control of every record, right? So again, if you see, we have added a button and on click of a button, we've just opened up a pop-up page with the summarized information of that particular record or a detailed information of that particular record, just in a better format. So the font and format, everything can be specified by you. The UI and the UX is also specified there. The third part is major here. As I said, we will be extending Creator as an application itself, the capabilities of Creator itself. So as you can see, this is an example of a Gantt chart. So Creator by default does not have the options to create Gantt charts. By using JS SDK and the JS widgets option, you can add Gantt charts as well. So you can extend applications and add new features or add new components into the application. Right. So let's learn a little more about the concepts, components, right? So we have HTML. So we support all HTML tags. All standard HTML tags are being supported. And depending on the browser compatibility, HTML5 is supported as well. And when it comes to CSS, we support inline, embedded, and external CSS. And the CSS files can be packed along with the app, or it can even be hosted on an external server. Third one, the JavaScript part, right? So from our end, we recommend you to use ES5, but the later versions are also supported based on the browser compatibility, right? The JavaScript can be, again, packed along with the app, or it can be hosted on an external server as well. And here's another huge part, the third-party libraries, right? So we support third-party libraries, the JavaScript libraries like jQuery, T3 charts, Velocity, and CSS frameworks like Bootstrap, uh, Bulma, and JavaScript, again, frameworks, JavaScript frameworks like Angular, Ember, Vue, Backbone are also supported, right? Again, these libraries can be packed along with the app, or it can be linked from an external static or a CDN server, right? So please do note that no HTTP or AJAX calls are supported through third-party libraries. Third-party client SDK, right? So this is the part where I said now moving forward, a lot of services uh, provide, popular services provide their applications to be included using their JavaScript client SDK. So we can make the most out of it and embed them into our application. right? So we also support businesses, business apps like Slack, Twilio, and a lot more. So most of the services which support JavaScript client SDK, we can make use of it as well. So one thing that we'll have to note here is whenever we add an SDK like that, right? So it will be triggering HTTPS requests to their respective server, right? So to allow the request, we'll need to whitelist that specific service for you, right? So for example, here we mentioned Twilio. Twilio allows JavaScript client SDK. So you can embed Twilio inside Creator moving forward. So, but for Twilio SDK to work, we'll have to whitelist there. And it's pretty easy. You just reach out to us, reach out to the support team. We'll analyze the request and we'll have the whitelisting done in the backend, right? So you need to do anything. We'll take care of it in the back. And another major feature here, right? So in Creator, like any feature that we provide, when you add it on the web version, it will be provided on your mobile version as well. And with the SDK, we will be supporting it in the native mobile application and the tablet application, right? It works both on iOS and Android. And if you worked on the creators mobile applications, you might know there are two applications, Zoho Creator and Zoho Creator Portal app. So one's for normal users and one's for portal users. So we'll be supporting both and also the code signed apps. And with Creator, recently we launched PWA, Progressive Web Apps. With Progressive Web Apps as well, it will be supported, right? And the developer just has to make sure that the app is responsive in nature to fit all form factors, be it any device that they're logging in from. Here comes a huge or a major thing that the developers have to look into before building applications or before building widgets on Zoho Creator. Zoho Creator, from our end, we do not check the widget code for any security vulnerabilities, code logic issues, or syntax errors. Right? The vulnerabilities like cross-site scripting, cross-site request, forgery should be identified and fixed by the application developer or the widget developer. Right? And we also do not recommend you to save or store the PIIs, the personally identifiable information. And also importantly, we also do not suggest you to save the authentication codes like auth token, client ID, and client secret. And the application or the widget developer owns the sole responsibility for any privacy and security violations. With that, we'll see what are the limitations for using such a feature inside Creator. Right? The widget app can have a maximum of 5 MB per file, right? So when you pack it and when you're trying to upload it, it will be 5 MB. But a maximum of 50 widgets can be uploaded per account. And based on the demand or based on the actual use case, we can look at extending as well, right? So for that, you just have to reach out to support. We'll try to understand the requirement and see if it needs to be enabled. And we mentioned all the supported file formats here. And here's a major factor that we'll have to look into. The widgets will not be a part of the backup and restore feature that we have, nor the DS export or the duplication of application. Right. So whenever you do the application changes, right, you will have to re-upload the widgets again. The zip file of the widget has to be re-uploaded. But we are looking into it. This particular update is being looked into, and it will be uploaded or it will be updated in the near future. right? So with that, we come to the end of this particular session. Uh, this particular feature in Creator opens a lot of venues, a lot of new stuff that we can try with Creator. Creator, even before, was a huge platform over which you can build any kind of application. And the few restrictions that we had when it comes to the UI and UX part should be taken care by this particular feature, right? So with that in mind, I'll wrap up with the session. So thank you once again, everyone, for patiently staying online and listening to the session. And hopefully we were able to provide some information. And with that, we'll move on to another very exciting update. So the next update that we'll be talking about is something that is currently in works and will be launched pretty soon. So for that, I'll hand it over to Padma, and she'll continue with the session. Right. Thank you once again.
So, hi all. So I'm back again with. I'm here to explain you about the features of introducing other languages apart from the Lute script, which you already saw in custom functions. So here we will be seeing other languages which all can be used as part of custom functions and which you can further accommodate inside your workflows, form workflows. I hope my voice is audible. I'm yet to share the screen, but at least I want to check with the audibility. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen now. So you're all able to, I hope you should be able to see my screen. Yeah, your screen is visible? Yeah. Okay. Fine. So we all actually for the past 2 days been learning more about how we use Delute script in the creator, and also we came across how do we create custom functions so that we reuse that piece of code in other in workflows in different scenarios. So here again we'll be using the custom functions, and we'll be writing the programming language that we'll be using in custom function would be slightly different. So we have introduced two other languages apart from Delute script. So you can use Delute script in a normal way, what you've learned, for the automations that you need to do within the creator. And apart from that, if you want to extend the functionalities which you want to, for which you have to depend or rely on other packages or classes, then we'll be needing to use other languages. So which is where we have introduced two more languages. One is the Node.js and the other one is Java. So I will be walking you through how we actually create this Node.js. Say when I choose Node.js, what are all the capabilities? What you can do in order to write your business logic inside using JavaScript. Okay. So first, let me walk you through how do we create the custom functions using Node.js. Okay, first thing is let's get into the workflow section from where you see, and you have this functions tab. Click on that, and you just click on the new functions. This is same as what you do with creating the custom functions, only that you'll be choosing the language here. So let's say you give a name for the function, and by default, the language that you see would be the Delute script. So you need to choose the language. So you will be able to see two other languages other than Delute script. One is Node.js, the other one is Java. Okay, now when you choose Node.js, normally, when you choose Delute script, you will have an option to specify or add a new namespace or select a namespace which you have already created, or you would stick on to a default namespace. But when you choose these two languages, that is Node.js and Java, the option for setting up a namespace is not allowed. It is done by, it is set up in the default namespace. Similarly, when it comes to the return type, when you were doing with the Delute script, you were able to specify different return types. It could be integer, it could be string, all the data types that is supported in Delute script. But here, it is always the collection which is returned, which is given back as a return type. And coming back to the arguments, this part alone you can configure. But again, there is a way by which you can configure. You cannot change the data type of the argument. You can only set up the number of arguments. But all the arguments that you are trying to pass to such functions, which you are trying to write using Node.js or Java in both the languages, the argument type is always string. So even be it you want to perform some mathematical operation, or be it you want to so you're trying to pass a list or a map, or it could be any kind of collections or any data type, the pattern in which it goes inside that particular function would always be in string format. And from inside or from within, I will show you how we take it as a receive that parameter, and you can then use the capabilities of Java and the JavaScript in order to parse it to the required data type and perform the business logic. So this is how it is structured. So you just need to remember, whenever you create a custom function with the language chosen as Node.js or Java, namespace can't be configured. It is always set to default. And return type is always collection. And you cannot change that return type. And the only thing that you can do apart from setting the name would be specify the number of arguments. Again, when it comes to the arguments, the type is always string. That's all. These things you need to remember. And sorry, let me know. I'll just show you how a function skeleton structure is being created once you click on the create function. Sorry, just Node.js. So I'll create a function. So when I choose a language Node.js, the structure that you see inside the function would be like this. That is, it will have this module exports and async function. Okay, but you should not remove this, or you must not change this. If all the business logics that you want to write in JavaScript, that is Node.js, should be done only in this area. Okay, within this area. So you should not change this part. If you try to remove this or comment this, then there will be an exceptional error too. Fine. So this is how you actually get into the Node.js and do your coding on it. Again, so when it comes to Node.js or when it comes to Java, it is not always we will try to write the entire business logic in the same file. So we would like to have some dependent libraries. We would like to create some external libraries so that we have the classes created based on its behavior. So we will categorize the classes, right? That is the normal way that we do with any object-oriented programming languages. So the same way here also, you can write the external files, the .js files that can be external JS files, and you can include it as part of this particular file and use the functions that you have written inside that external file. So say for example, I'll be showing you one example where I would have used an external JS file, where inside which I would have defined the functions to perform certain operations, arithmetic operations actually. So basic arithmetic operations where I'll be doing this addition, multiplication, division, and subtraction. And all that functions I would have defined it in an external file. And that file, I would be uploading it into this particular functional part. And from within this function that is here, I will be calling that function using you will have to first load that particular external file, and then you will be calling the respective functions in order to get the return value. So how do we actually include the external files? Is you will have an option called node modules. It is, you can see it's just like a folder. So just need to right click on this and you will see upload file. So from this, you would have written the JS files and maintained it somewhere in your local machine. Just need to upload it. You can upload more than one files, but again, there is a limitation to the maximum number of files that you can upload. The total size of the number of files that you upload should actually be only up to 10 MB. The limit is only 10 MB. So beyond that, it is not allowed. Okay. So that is the restriction that you can see as far as the external file is concerned. So this is one feature. So this is the way by which you include the external file, and from within the JavaScript function, you will have, if you have passing any argument, then I will show you from the sample example code, how do you actually retrieve that argument. Then you should be writing all your business logic inside this structure. So this is what you need to remember when you write a JavaScript. So I will just show you one executable code which has been written for calculating, for performing various arithmetic operations using Node.js. Right? So let's get into the working example. See, so in this function which I have written called the calculator function, it takes two arguments. One is the total count, the total, and the other one is the count. And both actually comes in as a string type. And the way by which I receive the parameters would be, you will be using this basic IO, which is actually the package or the reference, which is part of the Node.js and the Java file that you actually use, or when you try to select those languages, these are all included automatically. By default, these are all available. You don't need to externally load anything in order to get the reference to the context or the basic IO. Okay, so these are all the default classes available. So what you will need to do is just say basic IO dot get parameters. So that means you are trying to retrieve the argument that you are passing in the form of parameter, and try to pass the name, exactly the name that you have given as argument when creating the function. Okay, so this actually will give you the object which it has received inside, the value that it has received inside, and I'm externally doing parsing it to an integer value, because I know exactly that this function is going to take integers as argument and it has to perform some arithmetic operation. So naturally it involves only integers. So you should be aware of what kind of arguments you are actually dealing with, and use the corresponding parser to get pass it into the relevant data type and store it into a variable. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking the two variables and parsing it into integer and storing it into a variable. And as I said, I have actually loaded an external JavaScript file which actually performs the arithmetic operations. See, there are many ways by which you can achieve it. Either you can write the methods one below the other, and it will be too much. So that's the reason why we go in for actually maintaining a separate file as a library file and include it and make our job easy, and it will be very clear for maintenance too. So the same way, keeping that in mind, I have written a average.javascript file, and inside this file, a few functions has been written, which returns the operation, respective arithmetic operation that has to be performed. So what we do is, this is same as how you normally declare a function, write a function inside Node.js. So if we have to, whatever we are passing a two parameters, right? So if from the main execution part, if you see, we are passing the two arguments to the function which we have written inside Node file. So actually this is loaded, the external file average.js is actually externally loaded using require, which is again a normal executable statement that you normally use with Node.js. Right? The syntax that you see inside is all what you would have seen in Node.js. Okay, so what we have done is we have referenced this particular external file, and we have taken that reference in our hand. Now we have the reference, so we just need to say dot what all methods we have declared inside that particular file, we'll be using it here. And we are passing the argument. So depending upon the kind of arguments that is required for the function to be performed, you will have to pass a relevant argument. And in our case, both the arguments are integer and we are performing the arithmetic operations. So this is how I have just defined 5 functions, arithmetic functions, and internally I've called this function inside the main executable area, and that returns me the value. So when it comes to division alone, I've rounded it to 2 decimal places, and this syntax is again a JavaScript syntax. So you just need to the coding that you do inside is same as what you do with the JavaScript. That's all. But only thing you need to do, understand and remember is, don't do anything with this part, and do all your business logic inside this part. Okay. So after that, you can leverage your usage to all the external libraries by loading the files that you have that your particular program is going to depend on. That's all. Then the next important thing that you need to understand is we saw that the return type is always a collection. So how do you actually say it is actually returning some value? So for which we use basic IO dot write. So what this does is whatever value you pass inside this write will be taken as part of the collection. So if you see I'll just execute the program from here. You can see what it returns, what kind of collection it returns. So from that, you can understand how you need to retrieve the data from within your workflow and how do you need to get the relevant information. Okay, so let's now try to execute this function. So on execution, since we have two arguments, same as Deluge script. There in Deluge script also, if you have if you have the arguments, you will be asked for input, right? Same as that. Say for example, I give two numbers and I just say submit. So whatever value that I have passed here in basic IO or dot write is what you will see as output. So I'll just maximize, I'll zoom out. Yeah, I hope this is visible. So you can see that it is a collection, right? And in this collection, you have two map data. One will be the output, the value that you're passing inside basic IO.write. The other one would be the log, that is the debug information, if at all you have any. Okay. So what you need, what we have done is I have actually formed we know that it is returning a collection, but the kind of data that I am trying to send from this function to the creator itself would be another collection, right? So it is going to be, I need to understand that the product value is this, the sum value is this, the difference is this, division is this, and all that. So I have formed a stringed map pattern here. So product colon the value, sum colon the value, etc. And that will be the value of the first map key called output. So now you have understood how the response looks like, right? So what you need to do, you need to handle this response from the work flow where you will be actually calling this function. So you should understand that, okay, there is going to be a map that is coming to me, and that map, I'll have to first take the output key, then the value of that output key would give me another map because it's multiple data. It's a data structure that is coming to me. And from that, I'll have to iterate through each and every key in order to get the value. So it all depends. See, that logic depends on how you want to handle it. So in this case, in my case, what I have done is I have formed the string map and I have passed it as a value to this collection. So now what happens is I will execute. See, now you saw the execution just at the function, custom function level. Now let's try to do the same execution at the form level. That is, what I'll be doing is from a creator form, I'll be passing two arguments, and on submit of that, I'll be calling this function and passing those two values to this function, and it will return me the log info. Okay, so let's just execute that and see how it works. So I have a form called invoke function, and you can give any value you want to, say 33. So this is actually the workflow that I've written is called on success. And the debug information, whatever I get on success will look like a log file. Okay, it is not an alert, but a log file. So I'm submitting it. Yeah. So because that I have called this function on log on success, because the date record is already submitted, and at the same time the information, the collection information that is being passed from there is received here as info, you will be getting like this. So click on this and you will be able to see the output. So I have just beautified the output, but otherwise, the way in which the output we receive would be product colon value, sum colon value, division colon value, difference colon value. So this is how we would have got the output. So after which I will show you the deluge script that we have handled. I have handled it here in order to get this kind of output. Okay, let's go to the workflow part. Yeah. So yeah, there's a workflow called invoke. I hope this is it. Yeah. So this part, what you can see is, see, the input arguments are taken, and to the function that I have created, I said already there are two arguments, and the two arguments have to be passed as string. But what I receive at the input end is a number field, an integer. So I am passing it into string and then sending the value, passing the value as an argument. And that is returning me a response. The response here would be as same as what you saw there, right? When I executed the function there, you saw the response as a collection saying that output is this and a log with empty, right? The same thing would be returned here. So I would actually get that particular map key, that is output, the value for that key output, and I'm very sure, I'm pretty sure that I had actually formed a string of map. So I'm converting that into a map, and I have iterated through the list key, the list of map keys, and fetched the respective value. And again, as I said, I have just formatted the statement, that's all. So the key would be the purpose, that is the product or sum or difference, whatever is the operation of the two numbers is the value, that's all. So this is just a beautification of our output. The one thing that we need to really understand is the response that we get from the Node.js or the Java. In both the cases, the response would be only collection. Then you should know how to manipulate that value that is coming out of that particular function. So this is a simple function where I've shown you how to use external files in order to access the functions that you've written inside the external file. So you can think little complex on it, of big complex logics where you will need to do some multiple operations or date based operations or string based operations. So you have some complex logics to be written based on some conditions where you can decide to have separate library files and include that as part of the function and use it inside wherever necessary. So this is how we actually can implement Node.js. So this is a simple example. You can try with other functionalities of JavaScript inside this by choosing Node.js as a language inside the custom function and try to use it. Yeah. So this is for regarding the Node.js. Now I will show you when you choose Java as a language, how you will be seeing the structure inside. The rest is all the same. See, whether you choose Node.js, whether you choose Java, the collection type, the namespace, the number of argument, the argument type, everything is going to be the same. Okay, but the structure that by default you will get a structure when you choose these two languages alone, so that you maintain your business logic within that structure and you have an option to upload the external files. So all these features are going to be there. So now let's try doing this Java part. Say I'm going to create a function. Let's just zoom in a little. Yeah. So I will say Java sample, and from the language list I'm going to choose Java. So once I choose Java, it is same as what you saw already with this Node.js. Similarly, the argument is also same as what you saw with Node.js. Okay, let's now forget about the argument. So once you get inside Java, this is the basic structure. So from this you can understand that there is some default class or the jar file which has been included as part of Java. For Java, there are some default jar files included, and those jar files contains these classes called the context and basic. The context is mainly used for writing logs. Like you can give some debug information, right? That one. And basic io.write will actually be used as a return value, which is what is going to return you the collection. And while writing Java, always remember, please start, you if you know really that this is the starting point of your business logic, so this is where it has to be. Always it is triggered at the runner method. Same as whenever you write an external Java and all, say if you take a standalone application with Java, it'll look for the public static void main. So there has to be the static void main method, and it is the starting point, right? From there, then you will instantiate the classes in order to do other operations, access other methods. So same way here, runner is the starting point for you to execute Java, and you can write your logic within. And apart from this, you can as well write other methods also inside, but you need to stick onto it. But that is the same as what you do with any other with other Java codes. What you do, the same way you can write your methods and call those methods from inside, but the starting point is always inside runner method. That's all. So that is what you need to remember. Similarly, you can include external jar files as a reference files when you have to use those jar files to perform certain actions. The same way you have there, you had the node modules, right? Here you have something called library. So you just need to right click and do upload file. The functionality is all the same. How you handle is all the same. Okay, the interface will look just the same. Only thing, the simple structure difference alone will be there. Similarly, for receiving the parameters, that is, you pass argument and you need to receive the parameters, right? That is also the same. That is, you will be using the same basic IO dot get parameters. And then further, you can parse it to whatever string format, whether you want it as a string, whether you want it as an integer. So whichever class you want it, you can format it accordingly as you do in Java. So that is all the Java coding. So once you are inside this, inside the runner method, everything is Java coding here. That's all. Okay. So this is how we handle Java function. So I'm going to show you one simple one function which we have written, like watermarking an image. So I will just show you the code, and then I will show you the execution of it from our creator application. Okay. So we have yeah, wait, there is a function called invoke Java. So this is a function which has been written to watermark the image that we try to upload from our creator application. So in the creator application, what we have done, what this particular use case is that you will be uploading the image and you will be specifying the text that you want to watermark with. Okay. On submission of it, it will, this particular Java function will be called, and we have used the classes like the buffered images, graphics, images, all that in order to do this watermarking. And we have actually used the API calls here. That is, we have used the auth token. The reason is we need to read the data, read that particular file from the form, and you have to pass that image file, watermark it using the Java operations, and again write back that particular file into the creator, the same form in a different field. So I have two fields in that form. So if you take that input form that we are going to, where we'll be uploading the image to be watermarked and the text with which it has to be watermarked, you will have another field also available, which will be the output return file. That is, the watermarked file will be stored there. So in both the cases, I need to have the, I need to access the form in order to get the image file and the text. So that is done through this download method which we use, and we need to pass the auth token, and we need to pass the app link name, then the view, that is the report from which I'm trying to download that particular image file, and then comes I was telling you the parameters how we fetch is the same. Basic io.get parameter. And always remember the parameter, stick on to the name that you pass as argument. And here it has been parsed to string type because this is what we are going to process it later. Then we'll be using a method where we have performed entire Java code, Java operations in order to watermark that particular file. And finally, we have written it back to that particular form itself. So this is the entire function which actually watermarks a given input image file. So I will execute this function from the creator end and I'll show you how it works. So, but in this function, you can see that we have not used any external files. It is just the methods that has been used with them. That's all. So we'll go to that particular form and well, let's call it Z-Inspire. And I'm going to use the file. So there are so many images. Let me use a lighter image so that the text will be the size of the image also matters, because it again the size here, why I'm choosing specific files is that internally what we have done is just to use the Java functionalities. We have not manipulated it based on the file size. So depending on the file size, you need to position the text accordingly, right? So we have to rework on the code more in order to accept all kinds of files, so that the text font size has to be controlled accordingly. The positioning and the font size has to be controlled. So that part we can still improvise it. This is just to show you how the Java code can be used as part of custom functions, and that can be called from within the workflow of a creator. So I'm submitting this, and on submission, I'll be calling that particular Java function, and the image file that I've loaded would have been watermarked with the text. And I've just written an info. So info to just check what is the return value of that particular file, whether it is giving the exception or it is working fine. So let's go to the report. So you can see that the input file that I gave was this. So it didn't have any text, and the text I gave was Z-Inspire. And you can see that, as I said, we did not really manipulate on the positioning. That's why that E is missing. But you can improvise this code further to make that also happen. So depending upon the size of the file, you can keep the positioning. You can decrease the font size of the text that you're trying to enter, everything. So all that can be controlled. So this is how we can use Java as part of custom functions. Okay. So all that said and done, again, as I said, the maximum number of external file that you can upload, even in the case of Java, is the limit is 10 MB. And there are few other restrictions that has to be for that you will be facing when you use this. And that is actually very clearly specified in the help documentation, like number of arguments. The maximum number of arguments that you can pass to these functions would be 20. Then when you take at one point of time, say for example from the workflow, see, I'll just show you the success code of one of the workflows. See, in this workflow where we are actually, I'll just zoom out.
So perfect. So how about now, guys? Now is everyone able to hear me? All right.
Okay. Yeah. So here, this calculator function, which we are
Okay,
trying to
that's
call,
perfect.
suppose if I put it in a loop
Great.
here, for example, I write a loop statement here. For
Yeah, so
each
this session we'll try to
I
keep it a short and
index
crisp session.
in,
Because I think
say, a
we
list which
are
has only
overworking you guys as
5
well.
elements.
Uh,
Okay.
But these are
which has
exciting
sorry, which has
features.
10
We
elements.
wanted to
So that
introduce
means
these
this loop
features
will run for 10
and
times. But
give them
the
a
maximum
basic
number of
sense of the
times, the
concept.
calls that you
And
can
after that,
make to this
what you
function
do
within the
with these
iteration is
features are
5.
going to be pretty exciting
Okay.
for us to watch
But
as
if
well.
at all you
Right?
want to actually do some
With that,
iteration
we'll
of
move
the
on to
logic
our
within the
next session.
function, could
So
be it
in
the
this session,
Node.js
we'll be
or
talking
Java,
about
you can as well
mobile
handle
SDK
that stuff inside
in
that function.
Zoho Creator.
Instead of
So in the
handling it
last session,
here,
we
you can
saw
do that there. That is,
JS
you'll
widgets
be passing this
and
list as a string of list,
we,
and from inside you parse it into a
I'm
list
sorry.
and then perform
So in
your
the last session,
respective
we saw
operations.
JS widgets
Is that clear?
and
So that
how an
is how you
SDK
need
is
to
used
rethink how
to
you can
communicate
extensively use
information
these
between the
functions
widget
now.
and the database
So
that's
what
creator
you can do
application.
is just
So in
refer
this session,
to
we'll look at
the
how a
documentation
mobile
that you're
SDK
seeing here.
can be used in a
So we
similar
will
way.
we will pass this
Right.
in the
So what
handouts.
is a
So
mobile
these are the help
SDK?
documents where you can go
So
and
SDK
refer
is nothing but the software
to
development kit,
read
right?
how
So it
what
is
exactly
going to
this
empower
Java
you
function
to
is or
build a mobile
Node.js is,
application
what are the
without
capabilities,
need for any
and what
infrastructure
are
because
the
it
points
will
to be
run
remembered.
on the
That is,
creator system itself.
putting it in a easy way, the limitations or the
And
restrictions that you have,
with SDK,
all that
we will
information
be
will be
using
given
Zoho
along with
Creator
some examples too
as
in it.
mobile
One example
backend
of
as a
each.
service,
So in for
right?
one
So
Node.js,
the
there will be
front
one
end
example. For
of
Java,
your
there will be
mobile
one example.
application, you can
So you
customize
can
it
just
however
refer to
you
this
want, both the
documentation
UI and
in order
UX,
to get
and the
a
backend
better
would
idea
be
of
created. So
these
we will
functionalities
be
which can be used
taking
in
this
custom
forward
functions.
as backend
Right?
as a service as well.
So with this, I'm coming. We
And
are
as
coming
we
to the
all
end of
know,
this session where
for iOS
you would have
applications,
learned about
we
how to
use
use
Swift,
Java and
and
Node.js
for
as part
Android
of custom
applications,
functions, and
we
how you
use
can
Java,
extend the
right? So
functionalities
we're
and
going to
use it
use these
within the
two
creator
languages
on the
to build
respective
the
workflows.
applications on iOS
I
and
hope
Android
it
respectively.
was clear. So
So
any
with
questions you can just post and
Zoho
we'll try to
Creators
answer.
Mobile SDK,
So thank
we
you
can
one and
use
all.
it in
So
three
I will be
different ways.
handing over the
So we'll
session
see one at a time.
to
The first
Hemant
way
back for
is to
other
design
topics
your
that
own
we'll be dealing
UI
with regarding
and
SDKs.
UX using the core SDK,
Yeah, thank you.
right? For an iOS or an Android project as well. Both are available.
Hemant,
Right?
can
So
I give the control back to you?
and this is a feature that most of the vendors currently provide, right? And the core SDK will be a part of Creators Mobile SDK. So what does a core SDK actually mean, right? So as you know, with Zoho Creator, we provide native applications, Zoho Creator and Zoho Creator Portal. So one for normal users and one for portal users. So uh, both these applications have a native UI. So we have built the UI using our mobile developers and we have published it to the store, which you in turn download and use. Let's say you want to rework on the UI, the native UI that we provide. You don't want that UI at all. You want to build your own UI for the mobile application that you're trying to develop. So on Xcode or the Android project, you build the UI code. And with the UI code, you'll connect it to the Zoho Creator app using the Zoho Creator's core SDK. So the core functionalities will be made available and the UI and UX will be taken care by you in Swift and Java. So the data will flow through SDK, and you don't need to worry about the response of the APIs. They will be handled by as language objects in the backend. Right? So with the core SDK, as I said, the UI and the style will be your own. You can control the flow of your application. The user experience can be controlled. The authentication for login and logout can be handled effortlessly. And the third-party projects, right? So you can take advantage of tons and tons of open source mobile projects that are available, so which give you that UI and UX that you're wanting, right? So take them out, plug it to Creators Mobile SDK, and you have your own mobile application. So with the core SDK, the API requests are wrapped as method calls, so they won't be considered as API calls per se. So creator entities are modeled as language objects. So the creator functionalities, let's say the components like form, reports, pages, what happens in a form, each field, how the field interacts, everything will be available as language objects. So you just have to point your particular UI or the function to it. The essential metadata are cached to avoid unnecessary API calls. So this is again huge, considering the fact on a mobile application, most of these requests are done through APIs. And Zoho creators dependencies inclusion and base project creation, right? Scaffolding is available as well. And let's look at the second way we can put the mobile SDK into use, right? Embed your creator app as a single entity in an iOS or Android project, right? So let's say you already have created a project and you're trying to include the Zoho Creator app that you built as a part of this, right? So you have a mobile application, and inside that particular mobile application, you're trying to include the Zoho Creator app itself. It might be for many reasons. You might already have a native mobile application. Like most of the enterprises now, they have their own application for their organization. And with Creator, as you know, it's very easy to build applications. So you might want to extend the capabilities of your mobile application, what a mobile application actually does. So you just create an app on Zoho Creator, combine it to the existing app that you have, and you have a very effective application ready just like that, right? And this is something that we call UI development kit or the UI DK, right? So with UI DK, uh, you can you can include the native UI that we provide. So with Zoho Creators apps, the mobile apps, as I said, it will come with a UI and a UX of its own, right? So you can include that and the core part, combine it to an existing project, and you'll have a whole new application on its own, right? And so those are the points here. No need to work. There's the user interface comes with the app automatically generated as well. Let's look at the third way in which you can use mobile SDK. Right? In Creator, when you build an application, there'll be multiple components that you will be building. But on the mobile application, you would want to access only a few of those components. So in specific cases like those, we can use the third way, right? So you build a project, you design the UI, and using the core SDK, the data transfer happens, and you have the components. So in this example, we're showing the order form and the my request alone to be added into this application. This order management application, as you can see, it has order form, my request, and calendar, but we're just taking a couple of components and we're adding it into the mobile application. So it is going to allow us the capability of using individual components rather than the application itself. So this is again pretty useful in a few scenarios where you just want components picked out from the Zoho Creator application that you're building, right? And it's the same explanation here. There's no UI needed. And before we close up with the session, I'll probably try to show you an example of an SDK app. So this is an application that our in-house mobile developers built. So in this, we'll try to see how both the frameworks work. So let's look at the default Zoho Creators native app, right? How the UI and UX will look like. So we go into the Shuttles tab, right? So this screen is a screen that most of us might already know. This is the Zoho Creators native mobile application screen. How you interact with a drop-down field and how data gets populated, what we do with the data or how we interact is completely native here and the default experience that you get, right? So in this, we have taken a component from the Zoho Creator application and we've added it into an existing application. So this component alone is from Zoho Creator, which is included. That's one example, right? So that's UI DK. So the UI is already there, which is Creator's UI, and you embedded with the core as well. So the next option, supplies, we'll take a look at this. So with this, we've just taken the core framework alone. So the backend functionalities of Creator and the data is available as language objects. And as you can see, the UI and UX is completely different. You have a customized or you have changed the UI completely. And the interaction with the fields and how these fields behave is up to us, right? And so I'm giving it a sample one, and there's a summary, and then we close, right? This isn't how a creator form will look like, but this is how your creator form can look like in the future when you implement it using the core SDK. So we look at another example going into complaints. Again, creators native experience here. So we choose stuff. And we choose a bunch of options and submit the form. Default experience, going into canteens, a completely revamped UI and UX. The interaction, the form submission, everything is different, right? So this is how you can make the most out of the options that is provided using mobile SDK. So with the introduction of mobile SDK, any and every restriction that you had with mobile applications is being taken off. And the best part about the mobile SDK to add is it also allows you to incorporate the operating system's features as well. So one example is one major feature that a lot of developers have requested is the GPS feature, right? Live location tracking, which currently is not available. But as we all know, most of the iOS and Android mobiles uh, currently provide that particular feature, provide that particular function, which is available on the operating system itself. So you can combine that feature from the operating system, compile it to your mobile application, and you'll have a Zoho Creator application which can support live location as well. Right? Many more features like that. The live location is just an example. Apart from that, maybe in iOS, you have like haptic feedback, 3D touch, that's available as well. And Android also has like facial recognition, all the options that a particular operating system might provide that can be incorporated into your mobile application that you develop on Creator using mobile SDK. Right. So with that, we come to the end of this particular session. And yeah, after this, we'll probably break for a few minutes. Probably we'll take a 20-minute break. And after the 20-minute break, we have a few interesting sessions lined up with Deluge, how Deluge works on other services of Zoho as well. Right. So thank you once again for your time. And we'll break now for 20 minutes and we'll catch up after the break. Right. So, one more thing is, I will also be displaying the books schedule for next week. Give me 1 minute. right? So please do take a note of it so that you can attend the sessions accordingly. So as you might know, with books, it slightly differs based on the region that you're using it from. There are different versions of books. So based on which version you would like to learn, you can take a note of it and attend accordingly. Thank you once again, everyone.